Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Ballard Private Wines video. Like every quarter, this is my favorite type of video to make for you when we get to taste together and explain the wonderful wines that we've selected for you here, telling you their story, what they taste like and what you should expect from them. We're gonna cover some wine pairing suggestions, but also aging potential, etc. This type of information. Winemakers try to give you the essence of their land and of their terroir in each bottle that they make. We try with our selection to deliver you wines of authentic expression as well. Likewise, I try here to convey the essence of these wines, stories and flavors in just a few minutes of me talking about each of them. Now this time around we're not leaving for any faraway destination like we sometimes do, although for some of you I guess it's not next door, but we're staying in the US. We're headed to beautiful California, the Napa Valley, Sonoma, Mendocino. We have quite a road trip ahead of us through the windy vineyard roads of the West Coast that will take us through a beautiful journey into flavors of Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon. We had to have a few of those, but we'll also taste some Syrah and some Pinot Noir. Quite a long journey ahead of us, so let's go. As the name indicates, Landy Family Vineyards is a relatively small family project with an estate and winery located just west of Healdsburg in the Sonoma County of Northern California. For those of you who know the area, we are in the hills of the Russian River Valley here. The property boasts having some of the northernmost vineyards in the Russian River. Of course, you might know that the Sonoma County is arguably the best or one of the very best areas in California for making this zingy, acidic and vibrant style of Chardonnays, because in areas such as the Sonoma coast or the Russian River, the cooling influences from the ocean preserves the freshness of the grapes and of the wines eventually. So generally speaking, we have here Chardonnays made in more of a Burgundy style, let's say, sharp and elegant rather than an oaky and rich approach that you'd find more in Napa, for example. So let's see what Landy Vineyards Chardonnay has to tell us. Let's taste. And let's smell first. Wow, first off, the nose really boasts an incredibly deep tropical expression that is really rare at this level of intensity. There's incredible notes of fresh mango and lychee, maybe a bit of pineapple as well, a bit of grapefruit. It's quite floral as well. I'm getting some jasmine and elderflower. Rarely do you smell such explosive fragrance. It just jumps out of the glass. It's really delicate as well. It's not only powerful but delicate. It's really fruity in expression but also very fresh. Generally, when you get a really fruity Chardonnay, it's also somewhat heavy smelling, but this is not. This is delicate, this is floral, this is fruity yet powerful. Quite a complex expression to the nose, but let's taste. First off, I definitely must say that I really love that creamy and smooth texture that this wine has. It's utterly oily and silky, but without being too rich, thanks to this underlying crisp acidity that it's got. It's really extremely balanced and pleasant on the palate, while all these fruity flavors literally explode in your mouth. Again, on the palate, you've got all those fruity notes that are very powerful but light and vibrant. Some lemon zest, some orange, all the tropical fruit flavors. And you'll notice that the wine is also incredibly long, really lingering. All these fruity and floral elements last for a very, very long time in your mouth, and you can feel them, sense them one after the other after tasting, which is the mark of a great complex Chardonnay. After tasting, it's all complemented with notes of delicate oak, subtly smoky, light vanilla and a bit toasted hazelnut as well. So this is an incredibly pleasing Chardonnay with exceptional intensity, but also this refined, utterly smooth, pungently vibrant expression as well. What a craft! This combination of powerful fruit yet refinement is really rare indeed. And for this reason, this is going to be an absolute crowd pleaser of a wine with appetizers and entrees, but it's also going to be fantastic because you can definitely have it on its own, which you can't really with all or any wine. And it's just so satisfying by itself. I'm enjoying it immensely just like this with no food. But it's also going to be powerful enough to withstand pairing with some powerful food dishes, including the charcuteries, the cheeses, the canapés, even spicy foods will work great because it's got all of this intensity. This is vintage 2019, so it's a very young wine, but it's already really approachable as it is, while those Chardonnays from Sonoma in particular are notorious for aging extremely well, so you can give it some time in the bottle, in the cellar if you'd like to, and if you feel like stocking up, it'll age well for another 10 years easily. It'll only gain in complexity and roundness and spiciness as well. It'll tame down the fruit flavors as well. So you can definitely count on at least 10 years of aging on this. Well, let's move on to the red wines. Edict is a very reputable winery located in the Napa Valley. They always search to make very energetic wines with lots of flavors, opulent, rich and quite chewy tannins and spiciness and complexity. That's what they generally aim for. Now, because the Napa is generally a little too warm for making an elegant, refined style of Pinot Noir, they've gone to the Anderson Valley. I guess the south of the Napa Valley is suitable as well, but they've gone north to the Anderson Valley to source their grapes for this wine. Now, the Anderson Valley AVA is located north of the Sonoma County in this valley, neighboring the Pacific coast that gets a lot of cool winds and an strong influence from the ocean current. So it's quite a cool climate for California. It's ideal for making vibrant Chardonnays, but also Pinot Noirs. So let's taste what this Edict Anderson Valley Pinot Noir has to tell us. Wow. Yeah. I am loving the really smooth aromas of vanilla and caramel that it features first, that really strike at first, and they're also surrounded by very appealing notes of ripe sour cherry and raspberry coulis. So it smells very soothing, very smooth and soothing smell, very calm and soft and also sweet. Although there's this big burst of peppery spiciness as well, something like a freshly grounded mix of black and green pepper. It's certainly appealing to smell at, and it's certainly also really deep yet vibrant. So it's fruity, it's oaky and spicy. You already get all those components to the nose, so let's taste. So this oaky, caramelly, vanilla smoothness that I had on the nose is definitely carried through to the palate here. The texture is indeed really oily and soft with a good balance of juicy and salivating acidity. So this acidity really helps underscoring the ripeness of the fruit character, the cherry flavors that we love in Pinot Noir, and it also liberates the very bright peppery, spicy notes as well. This acidity really brings them to life. There's an element of chili-like spiciness in there as well, which I really like because it makes it feel a little hot. It gives it this extra 5% magic as well, which I actually love. It lifts the freshness as well. I think it's a little minty as well, which probably explains why it's got this refreshing sensation. There's huge complexity of spices together with the smoky oak, the red berries, the thyme, rosemary, minty, caramel, candy tones as well. I mean, there's an awful lot going on here, and I'm loving how the finish in particular brings in some forest floor earthiness that we love to find in Pinot Noir, because it gives a touch of savoriness as well. All of those components are really delightful, really complex, and it's very interesting to analyze and feel every component into this wine. So wine with a really impressive concentration for Pinot Noir, yet it also has a balance and an elegance and a spicy complexity. I think the spicy complexity is the standout feature here. This is a generous Pinot Noir, so you can have fun pairing it even with foods that are not too weak in flavor, because it will withstand the strength of some grilled lamb, for example, or even some relatively mild cheeses. We recently talked in another video about pairing chicken with wines. Well, this is a perfect example, perfect candidate, fantastic wine that you can pair with roasted chicken. Whew, yum, I'm salivating already thinking about tasting this wine with such dishes. Now, it's brilliant now because, as I was saying, it's very approachable. Many components are already available for you now, but this is also a wine that you will be able to age for 10 to 15 years if you want to develop more earthy savoriness, more mushroomy character, more savoriness to them if you like your Pinots to be even deeper. It has all the potential to do that. This is such a beautiful, complex, fruity, earthy Pinot Noir. A lot to say. I could go on and talk more about it, but let's leave it there and move on. Now, this is a wine that I'm very particularly excited to taste and share with you. We're leaving Northern California to go to the Central Coast in Santa Barbara County. And more than that, we have here an estate that is called Stoplman Vineyard, that is located in one of the prime locations in Santa Barbara for winemaking, that is called the Ballard Canyon. Now, the Ballard Canyon encompasses a small geographical area totaling 7,700 acres, but only 550 acres of which are currently planted to vineyards. And this is an AVA that is renowned for its focus and its excellence in making Syrah wines, specifically the French grape from the Rhone Valley, that is not always very well known, appreciated, or very well made in California. Not every site in California can make good Syrah. So Stoplman Vineyard Estate grown Syrah comes from a small winery that was founded about 20 years ago that makes wine from its own grapes. This Syrah, this particular wine, is their pride. It's the jewel of the winery because it's quite a dry area of Santa Barbara that is quite sheltered from rains and cool breezes. They use dry farming with no irrigation from fruit set through harvest. So for the majority of the growing season, they don't irrigate or add any water, which allows more elegance and more concentration into the wine. So on paper, this is such a fascinating and rather unusual wine for California. But let's taste. It's got everything on paper to be fantastic, and I love Syrah personally, but let's taste. And the first nose is just really soft. I think marzipan is what it smells like, so almond is slightly smoky as well. Roasted almonds, if you wish, that gives you an image, but when you agitate the glass, is when all the spicy, the mighty spiciness that is so typical of Syrah is revealed. So that's a lot of black pepper that just surrounds a heap of blackberry aromas, some delicate floral or delicately fruity pomegranate characters as well. So it's not all power and spices and ripe fruit. There's also a delicately violet floral element as well to the nose. very intriguing. So let's taste. Wow, really interesting. I think what's truly remarkable in this wine is how chewy it is and balanced it is as well. It's got a really compact, chewy texture. It starts with a lot of vibrancy from the acidity and the fruity flavors. It tastes a little like a fresh raspberry, really juicy, very zingy and vibrant characters, just like biting into a fresh raspberry. But then you realize that there's also a lot of very dense tannins in there. It's a very, very concentrated tannic texture, but because the tannins are round and soft, it doesn't feel aggressive at all. Yet, because it's so dense, it allows you to chew on it. It's smooth, it's oily, so you can chew on it. You can really appreciate it for a very, very long time and really extract for your senses and enjoy all the ripe blackberry flavors, the almost meaty flavors that Syrah delivers. There's some rosemary, some thyme, a bit of vanilla, the sense of hazelnut are in there as well. It's compact, it's dense, it's utterly smooth, but also very complex. So the sort of sensation and harmony that only extremely well-balanced wines can deliver. This sense that you can keep the wine on your palate for as long as you want to, as long as you enjoy it. You can, and it's quite rare to have this, especially out of Syrah, which is the sign of a very balanced, very round wine, yet dense and concentrated. Wow, what a Syrah. And this is such a beautiful, balanced wine with so much character, with the typicity of Syrah, yet a round smoothness that is very rare. It's so balanced and dense that you'd give this wine a very, very long aging potential. I'd probably say 20 years plus if it was just for me, but I have to stay, I guess, for here on the reasonably safe side of things here. So let's say you can count on 10-15 years of aging. It's almost ready to enjoy now because it's so smooth, but really I'd give it 2-3 years from now of cellaring before enjoying, if you can store it for that time, to let it really settle down and open up a little more. I'd say taste it now and stock up if you like it, and enjoy over the next decade, all over the 2020s decade and onwards. For food pairing, again, it's so balanced and elegant that I'd say you could virtually throw anything at it, anything that's not too social, obviously. Maybe not your most delicate scallop and whitefish dishes, but other than that, anything a little tasty, go for it. It'll be wonderful with any type of food. Moving on, and I might actually switch glass, go for a bigger glass for the Cabernets, even though this Syrah was pretty big. But let's go with a bigger glass for tasting the Cabernet. So the Verdon estate is a winery that is located in the Napa Valley, so we're back in Northern California. This is a producer that prides itself in sourcing grapes from a handful of small vineyards, and it prides itself in supporting their partnering wine-growing families as well. What's even more interesting in the project is that the estate's winemaker, who is called Mr. K. Morrissey, started his career working at Petrus, essentially the estate making the most expensive wine in Bordeaux. So he worked at Bordeaux just like me, and before taking the helm of the famous Napa producer Stag's Leap Winery for 9 years, and then he crafted wines at the famous Eller's estate. So we've got quite some talented winemaker here. This is the 2018 Reserve number 5 proprietary red, whose exact composition is kept a bit of a secret, but we know it's a Cabernet-based blend, probably with small amounts of other Bordeaux varietals, say a Bordeaux blend overall. But let's taste. Wow, so this is still a bit of a shy wine to the nose. You can smell that it's a very young Cabernet, keeping things really for itself still. There are some vibrant blackcurrant characters, typical of Cabernet Sauvignon. Very clean and very precise blackcurrant, quite shiny here as well. You can sense the caramelly cherry character that I associate with Merlot more than Cabernet, that surrounds this fresh zingy Cabernet character. There's a little vanilla, a little toasted bread. It's a little introvert at this stage, but intriguing nonetheless. Maybe the palate will tell us more about what it has to say. Let's taste. Wow, yes indeed, the palate is way more telling. This is a very concentrated wine and a young wine. It has this huge tannic texture with very dense tannins that are velvety, a little granulous, velvety overall. It's not only that, despite all the richness and the concentration, I think the acidity still manages to shine through. It makes this wine really juicy and salivating. The acidic feel really underlines and helps the vibrant notes of red berries to shine. You got some mixed raspberry and some strawberry jam flavors as well that surround a heap of oaky vanilla, toasted wood, chocolate and coffee. It is quite oaky overall. There's a lot going on. The finish is really explosive with all those oaky and spicy flavors as well. For those who have been in the club for a while, it does remind me of a wine that we had that was called La Bomba, or the Bomb Cabernet by Martelotto Winery, that we had in our last domestic wine selections. It is so concentrated and explosive, but also very vibrant with this huge underlying acidity that brings in a lot of freshness to the wine. So this is a lot of everything style of Cabernet, not only tannins and richness, but also loads of acidity. Whew, quite a wine. So as I said, this is still a baby of a wine, and you can tell even by the very vibrant color. So I'd say I'd wait a little on it, 3 to 5 years if you can, so it reveals itself a little more, especially on the nose, and from there you have all the time in the world to enjoy it, and this will age for a very long time. You already know what pairs with a good Napa Cabernet, of course, the grilled meats, the roast, the rich stews, the powerful pasta dishes, the strong cheeses as well. Whew, yes, can't wait to have a piece of cheese with such wine. I'll taste the other wines first, but yeah, all those dishes, go for them with this wine. The story behind Auctioneer Napa Cabernet is interesting. It is called Auctioneer, not because we bought it at auction, but as a tribute to the historical pioneering figure in high-end wine auctions who was called Michael Broadbent. Broadbent was British and one of the very first masters of wine, the 24th master of wine ever. In fact, I think there's 400 or 450 of them now, but he was one of the early ones, and back in 1966 he set up the first wine department at the famed auction house Christie's in London. And no one had really bothered auctioning collectors' wines before. It wasn't quite a thing yet. So he went on to establish Christie's wine auctions in the US and pioneered wine auctions all around the world, in Australia, Asia, Hong Kong, Europe, etc. And he was a big fan and supporter of Napa Valley wine. So Michael Broadbent sadly died last year in 2020, but his son Bartholomew Broadbent keeps his memory alive, including through his Auctioneer label that he designed as a high-end, elegant and typical expression of Napa. So let's find out for ourselves. To the nose, we have the typical, indeed, really generous expression of Cabernet here. the generous blackcurrant, as we talked about before, the jammy strawberry, the dark chocolate, some cinnamon and nutmeg. It's got some sweet spices to it. It's really spicy and lifted as well. A really well integrated oak here. This is a young wine also, another 2018. It's more opened already to the nose. I can sense more things that are coming out and that are telling me stories already, but let's taste. Wow, this is also really interesting. It's interesting to taste this wine next to the previous one that we were tasting before, Verdon Estate. And that's because while Verdon was more maybe vertical wine, this is much more horizontal wine. Let me explain. It's not quite a chewy and vibrant as the previous one. It also has a lot of acidity, which I find here is very appealing because it's got a slightly biting acidity, very juicy acidity. Yes, there are different types of acidity that you can perceive or sense on your palate. This is more of a citrus-like acidity, much like the acidity of, say, a lemon juice. This slightly crystalline acidity, it feels like it has little crystals of acid in it, which provides much liveliness, a bitiness, a juiciness to the acidity. Now the tannic texture is really velvety as well here. It has little fine grains of tannins in it. There's a big burst of ripe jammy red berry fruits and a lot of spiciness, while the finish develops some herbal flavors like a herbal bitters liqueur, very herbal. So there's plenty of fascinating and different facets to this wine, really a more multifaceted wine. The fruit, the oak, the acidity, the spices compose this kind of Rubik's Cube style of a wine, while the previous wine was more like a harmonious bowl of sensations on your palate. This is more like a cube with different expressions on different sides, equally as good, but just a different expression, and really fascinating to taste them one next to the other. Both Cabernets from Napa, same vintage, but different expressions, a soft round bowl and more of a multifaceted cube with different aspects and colors, a Rubik's Cube. Delicious, just as delicious, I'd say. And the Auctioneer is more ready to drink now. I'd certainly start enjoying it now without restrictions. There's already plenty, as I've described, to appreciate here. Still, it's got solid aging potential, I'd say around 10 years easily, although perhaps because it's less rounded and less complete overall, a little less than the previous one. But 10 years, you'll be safe. A really fascinating Cabernet, this one, that I personally much enjoyed, for all the reasons I've described, the complexity it has. As I said before, you know what to pair this with: meaty dishes and other strongly flavored foods. And finally, Shannon Ridge is the winemaking child of owner and founder Clay Shannon. This is a wine called Ovis, Cabernet Sauvignon, but the winery is called Shannon Ridge. In short, Clay, the founder, grew up on a farm in Healdsburg, Sonoma County that we were talking about before. He began his career as a vineyard manager in St. Helena, Napa Valley, traveling wine regions of California and managing the company's vineyards. From there, he later started his own vineyard management company, growing grapes for some of the top wineries and fruit companies in Northern California. So a top, really talented vine grower, grape grower. When in 1995, Clay discovered a property in the hills overlooking Clear Lake in Lake County, 35 miles north of Napa's vineyards. That's where he founded Shannon Ridge, making his own wines from his estate's vineyards with a simple vision, and I'm quoting him here: "We wanted to grow the best fruit in the world, but we wanted to do it in a way that made us happy living there." So we're on a hilly terrain here, slightly cooler than Napa, with the influence of the nearby Clear Lake. The wine was aged for 30 months, that's quite a long time, in French oak barrels. But let's get tasting this beautiful looking wine indeed. and you can definitely smell it's slightly more mature, even the color suggests so. It's a little more orange than the other ones. This is a 2016, and you can smell what 2-3 years of additional aging has done to this wine. It's already opened up on the nose. I love the ashy, oaky aromas in particular, which is one of the typical traits of Cabernet as it ages. It smells a little like ashes or the charcoal in the fireplace in the morning when the ashes have just cooled down. It's got this smoky, ashy character that I personally love. You know, it doesn't smell like ashes, but it's one of the components of the wine. It's also plummy. It's got a lot of fresh grape juice aromas, so freshness really of the fruity characters as well. Very smoky, a bit of creamy milk chocolate here, surprisingly enough, more than the dark chocolate. Creamy milk chocolate, I'd say. It does feel soft and creamy. To the nose, the plummy, the richness of the grape juice, very, very, wow, yeah. But let's taste. Wow, man. Well, I guess I should say dude. I guess some would probably say dude in California. This is a very, 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 very rich and powerful wine. It essentially has everything we love and that you'd expect from an excellent California Cabernet. It's somewhat in between the previous two wines. It's got both the roundness and the incredible acidity, intensity of the first Cabernet that we tried, but it also has the more velvety, textural element, granulous tannins that tickle your taste buds. It's creamy as well. It's soft overall, but a little grapey. There's this balance and harmony, but also the many facets, the plummy side of things, the red berries, the burst of mixed spices, the herbal notes as well, the ashy, smoky, the vanilla, the oaky element, the burnt caramel, the chocolate, the coffee, the creamy undertones. It's very long and layered as well. You can taste it for minutes after you've swallowed or spit it out as I do. Quite a lot going on here. I could go on forever. So much happening here. And since this is already a 5-year-old wine or nearly so, as I was saying, it's already opened up for you. It's already flourishing. So no need to wait. Although if you want even further depth and complexity out of it, you can definitely stock up and hold on to it for 10 years easily. Typically, this is the kind of wine that you want to have a case of in your cellar to impress your friends whenever you need to. And it'd be fun to find out and follow how it evolves year after year, how it complexifies and how the fruit is going to be tamed down and the complexity, the spiciness, the ashiness is going to bloom even further. So wine to have a bottle of every year or every second year for special occasions and for really serious enjoyment. This wine is for food pairing. By now you don't need me to elaborate on what to have with this type of wine. You already know. And there you have it. This is what I love and what I look forward to with making these videos and with every new selection from the club. 6 wines, 1 box full of incredibly varied flavors, a road trip in a box, and through California this time, a road trip in a box as I like to call it. We've gone from north to south of California, well not quite, but at least from the north of the northern California with this last wine to the central coast and Santa Barbara, from the coastal areas of Sonoma in the Anderson Valley to the heart of the Napa Valley to the shores of the stunning Clear Lake, and through the variety of flavors from Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Syrah, and diverse Cabernets in the same style, but I think you've understood the slight nuances that you can appreciate within each of them as well. So really interesting and different expressions of wine. I mean, what else can you ask for from a box of wine? I personally enjoyed how American these wines feel to me, in a good way. There's this signature to California wines, the opulence, the generosity, the concentration, the punch that they have that we don't get that often much out of old world wines like in France or from Italy. It's different, yet those you can feel also the local American craftsmanship that again is different from the French or the Spanish one, but that is definitely real and obvious, and that transpires through all of these wines. The attention to detail to deliver unique expressions from all these unique different places that we've talked about, the soil, the oceanic influences, a lake, a coastal breeze, it's all expressed, canned into these bottles of wine, or bottled I guess I should say, and it's wonderful to experience. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm sure you will enjoy this selection. On these final words, thanks for watching. I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers. Santé.